Awesome. Let's go share it with the world.
Yes.
We're going to get more efficient with this every time we do it.
We're only about 11 minutes late.
Only 11 minutes late. And
compared to last time,
keep getting better.
30 minutes late. Okay.
Send its apology. See what he thinks. Boom.
All righty.
Sweet. Let's see. Cool. Who else needs to know this? Okay, these two people. Yep. Okay. Jose Rosado just said, "You're gonna make Cortez go out to get you." Where is he? Have him pop in.
Cortez is not here right now. He is training.
Oh, it's only 6 o'clock. Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing darkness everywhere.
Yeah, it's so dark. It gets dark at like 5 here now. It's crazy.
It's too bad.
Yep.
We got some people on seeking.
Yeah, we have like close to 200 now.
Oh, we do. I like that. That's a very clever handle, Seeking Crypto. It would be cool if it was Seeking Alpha, SIKIHING.
Yeah. Cardio. So cardio. We're going to talk about a lot of cardio today.
A lot of cardio. Maybe we should give our own sad backgrounds in cardio before we get everyone started.
Yeah, that's I think a good idea.
Maybe you can go first because more of the audience might know you, and so the people who are tuning in later, then they can catch me. And so if you want to share your...
Sounds good. Yeah, so I spent probably close to 13 years of my life doing really, really intense steady state cardio every day.
So how long were you fat? That might be helpful to... So
I was always kind of like a chubby fat kid, and I loved food. I loved eating. I still love eating. But when I got to my teenage years, obviously being fat wasn't really helpful in school because like all the hot girls were getting the guys, and I wanted to look good so I can also get guys. But beyond just that, I inherently knew that something was unhealthy about being that chubby, and I just had a desire to lose weight. And entering high school, puberty, all those reasons I did. And then I decided I was going to run to do that. Of course, I hated running when I first started. I hated running for many years, but over time I started to really, really love running, and I joined the track team in school, and that really kind of made me fall in love with running even more. And I knew that after I graduated high school, I was like, running is going to be the thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life because this is just who I am. And like especially for people who are in their head a lot, who are very like introverted, I think running is a very powerful, almost like addictive thing because it allows you to go in your head and just like experience this runner's high. And it's not, you don't necessarily have to think about your body when you're running. It just like you're just kind of in this flow. And people who are in their head a lot are seeking that kind of flow type of thing. So I really loved running. But like, as I got better and better at running, I kept increasing the mileage. And there were times where I would be running like 5, 6, 7 miles, 8 miles a day. And I was just wearing my body out. I got hip injury that took like 6 weeks to heal. I got a knee injury that took another 2 months to heal. I was devastated during these like times that I got injured because all I knew was running, and I didn't know, like, if I don't run, I thought like I'm just gonna get fat again because like, I don't know how to do anything else, and like that's what my body's used to, and if I stop running, like everything's gonna fall apart. I was just so attached to running, even though it was kind of self-destructive in some way. And then I remember one time I was like in like the depths of my despair, I guess. I got another injury. I was at the gym. I forget what I was doing, but there was this old man at the gym in San Francisco that always we would talk about running and all that stuff.
Which gym did you go to in San Francisco?
I was at 24 Hour Fitness, so nothing
The
glorious.
one in California?
Yeah, in San Francisco. I'm in North Beach.
Oh, you went to the North Beach one?
Yeah, I went to the
That
North Beach.
was-
I went
I-
there
I-
for like 5 years.
Did you live in North Beach?
Yeah, I live in North Beach.
What? I lived in North Beach too.
Yeah. Yeah, small world. So they were open 24 hours. So it was really convenient. I remember there was this old man who was my friend at the gym, and because we used to come every day. We were the two people who came every day, every morning at 5 a.m. And he saw how much I ran, and he would warn me that that's not good for me, especially for a woman who, you know, increasing bone density is more important as you age, and like running that much is going to only make it worse. And like when I got injured, he knew it was the perfect opportunity to get me into weight training. So he gave me this like literally an hour-long lecture at the gym to get me to weight train, and I was so reluctant because I was refusing to change my mind that there's anything better than running. And I gave it a try though, and it was just like it was totally different. It was just like totally different from running. So I did really like weight training, but to be honest, like I still like I would prefer to do a cardio workout over a weight training workout.
Interesting.
And so I would do both every day. I would first start with my cardio, and then I would weight train. So, and if I was really, really short on time, which I wasn't usually the case because I prioritize like the gym, I would prioritize cardio. And I was like that until probably 2-3 years ago. Mm-hmm. And like people told me, like, you know, why are you doing that much cardio? It's only going against your weight training goals because you're probably entering a catabolic state at that point, and then you're trying to weight train. So you're like basically defeating the point of doing all this weight training. But I didn't listen. I was stubborn. I and kept doing it. And then it wasn't until I don't know what happened, but I was finally in a state where I was like, all right, I'm just going to try like not doing that much cardio a day and like just focus on like weight training. So I would still walk or do a little bit of cardio, maybe 20 minutes instead of an hour a day.
Yeah.
And I just saw like I was able to put on more muscle more easily. Mm-hmm. So I was like, wow, I wasted like 10 years, like basically doing stuff that didn't put any muscle on me. It only destroyed my body. Two, I wasn't like in a bad mood and hungry all the time, because when you do that much cardio, when you do an hour and a half, you know, there was times where I was doing 2 hours of cardio a day. When you're doing that much cardio a day, you're deprived, and I was not eating enough at all for that much cardio. So I was like super skinny and just like totally worn out, and I was working, and like, like I just put my body in this like really high stress state. And when I stopped doing that, it's like I actually had the energy to think in a higher realm. I didn't have to like feel like think like doing like anything that I want to do is so hard. Like when you're doing that much cardio a day, the rest of your day is really fucking hard because everything feels hard because you've basically depleted your body of everything that it needs. So it just like my energy improved, my mood improved. I could just do more stuff throughout the day. I'm way more productive throughout the day. And like, you know, my fear of, you know, gaining weight if I don't do enough cardio, that took a long time to overcome, but it slowly went away because I just didn't see myself gaining the weight. The only thing that would happen was that I would get less hungry. So I'd have to be a little bit more disciplined to not just like stick to my very strict regimen of my meals and just kind of learn how to eat intuitively and eat enough. And then over time, like my body sort of figured it out, and I sort of figured it out. But that was kind of my cardio journey.
And I bet a lot of people who are listening in feel somewhere similar, where you can tell them, you know, hey, I wasn't feeling good. And they're like, yeah, well, that's what you signed up for. Like, you know, if the only alternative is you just feel fat. And I was kind of the same way, where, you know, I was chubby from maybe 4th grade to 8th grade. And, you know, I decided in high school, I want to get in shape. I want to make the varsity team my freshman year for baseball. And I'm going to do the training that I decided was helpful for that. And I don't know, you know, I probably just drew on images that I saw from movies, because that's how people decide you're supposed to train, is they watch movies and they do what Rocky does. And that's the best workout that you can do, is what you see on a movie from somebody who's taking steroids and didn't actually do that training program. And so, you know, I started doing distance running as a freshman in high school, where, you know, I'd run like 1 to 3 miles, like a few miles. It wasn't like 5 or 10 miles, but it'd be like a little bit, you know. And, I noticed I wasn't getting faster from it, but then I just thought that was what you're supposed to do to be in shape, because you see other people who are in shape jogging at the time.
Yeah.
And so, I kept doing that. I wouldn't say I was a runner, but, I could run a mile fast. I enjoyed watching Prefontaine movies. And, by the time I got to college was where I read a book by this guy, Matt, I think his name's like Verstegen or something like that. He was Nomar Garciaparra's, I think he was his trainer back, when Nomar Garciaparra was the Red Sox shortstop, and I was a shortstop growing up. And I was like, I want to do what Nomar does, because I want to be a successful baseball player and I want to look like that guy. And so he was saying, you want to run your cardio fasted, and I would always hear 20 to 30 minutes was kind of like where you get the most bang for your buck. So I figured, well, if I'm serious about being in shape, when I'm done playing baseball, I'm going to do my cardio for 20 to 30 minutes in the fat burning zone, because in my mind, as an optimized thinker, I'm like, okay, optimal length, 20 to 30 minutes, optimal heart rate is going to be in this zone. And then optimal days per week is this. And then if I just don't stop doing that, I'm going to be in the optimal shape that I can possibly be, because that's how a lot of people model their, quote unquote, optimal workouts when they're getting started, is they just kind of look at what the study's saying. Okay, well, I'm going to do that exactly, because it's right in the middle, which is totally like nonsensical, because it doesn't take into account your own body's responses. Yeah. And I kept doing that for several years. And, as I was done playing baseball, it was hard to tell, why my body was changing, because obviously I wasn't doing the same things. I wasn't on the field 6 hours a day. I wasn't doing, it wasn't an apples to apples comparison. And so as I got a little bit stronger and fatter in my 20s, I kind of just figured like, yeah, well, I'm not playing baseball anymore. So this is just what adult men look like. So that's fine. I'm just going to keep running my 4 miles every morning, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I want to be responsible. I want to be in shape. And I know it's hard, but I'm going to keep doing it. Fortunately for me at the time, I didn't get any like joint pain, knee pain. I just kind of ran on the treadmill, even maybe on asphalt sometimes, and it was fine. That all changed in my first year working in a strategy group at Google, because I was working with this guy named Woods was a pretty strong dude. Like he could bench press 225 6 times, which is like really strong for a corporate office.
I like the context. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because like I crushed everybody in my group, but that wasn't fair, right? But he was like, he was a strong guy. Like if you can bench press 225 6 times as an adult male, that's pretty strong. And so, but he could also run triathlons. Like the dude could run like 10 miles at like a 6:20 pace. And I thought, man, that's really cool that he can do that. And he's way better than me at running than I am compared to him at lifting. So let me try to get good at running, because it's like the thing that I want to get good at. And in my mind, that was not going to result in fat loss at all, because my best friend growing up, his mom was a doctor, and his mom said you burn the same amount of calories whether you run fast or slow. So I'm like, oh, I'm not burning more calories. I'll just do it faster, and it's fun. I'm just going to do this for fun. And within 2 weeks of kind of like, my body was just kind of like the same all the time. Like, because I do the same workouts, I eat the same. It just kind of was the same. And within 2 weeks, my body fat just started to drop dramatically. And I was cutting my mileage down. So I went from I was doing like 30 miles a week at the time, I think. And I cut that down to like 20. So I cut my volume down by 33%. And within 2 weeks, I could notice a visible difference in like abdominal definition. Like, I might be onto something here. Let me just keep making the same incremental changes that got me to this.
How were you eating at the time? Were you eating intuitively or eating the same thing?
I was eating intuitively. The main difference between my diet then versus now was probably a little bit more carb dominant, and wasn't as careful about seed oils. And so the framework was quite similar, but the nuance was lacking. So I would eat seed oils at the time. I would eat more carbs. I would eat a lot of protein, but I wasn't like tracking my protein. And so, it was the first step in the natural progression that's led to where I am now. I never did any sort of like caloric restriction. So I think fortunately my metabolism can thank me for that. But, so I was eating the same, and I started noticing fat come off. And then so I just started playing a game of Jenga where I'm like, oh, well, if running 4 miles fast makes me lose more fat than running 6 miles slow, what if I run 3 miles faster than 4? And that worked too. So cutting my mileage down from 4 to 3 miles, I got leaner.
Wow.
Oh, interesting. Okay, what if I cut that down from 3 to 2? About the same. Okay, interesting. And then, you know, I started changing my lifting to where I was going to lower rep ranges for heavier weights. I'm like, that seems to be giving me a better, better effect on my body composition. What if I do the same thing with my running, where I'm just focusing on intensity rather than duration? And so let me switch my 2 miles to intervals. Let me see where that goes. And it kept working. And so, you know, basically, if you talked to me 8 years ago and like said, Alex, don't run as much, I'd be like, yeah, that's okay. But it was only through experiencing that I got not just almost as good, but much better results running faster for significantly less time. So when I was in my mid 20s, I was running 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So 2.5 hours, 150 minutes. Whereas now I'm doing about 35 minutes a week. So, you know, I'm doing 75% less time. Now it is more intense per minute, but it's a lot less. Half of the time I'm not even doing anything. I'm resting because it's in between intervals. And my body fat's way lower.
Yeah.
And so many people, they feel the way that we felt at some point in our journey. And it takes that experience oftentimes to realize that you're not going to get that body that you want in all likelihood living on the treadmill or the elliptical or the bike. And
and like, you know, people say, like, if you go to the gym, just look at the difference between the people in the weight room and the people on the cardio machines. You can readily tell, like, the proof is in the pudding. Like, the people in the weight room typically have more muscle. They're honestly a little bit leaner, and then the ones on the machines, even if they're lean, they're kind of skinny fat.
Yeah.
Which is just, you know, you're better off being fat because at least you know you're fat and you have a problem, versus being skinny fat and thinking you're okay but being like metabolically actually fat. So it's just like it's just a downward spiral, I've noticed. But I think it's also important to caveat that, like, cardio isn't bad.
Right.
Cardio is great for strengthening your heart, and doing it, like taking walks or even doing like jogs here and there, is actually important for just conditioning your body. And you don't want to just lift either. You want to be like athletic and be able to move.
Right.
But using cardio as a tool for either fat loss or weight loss or whatever your fitness goals are, I don't know if that's like truly, that's not the right approach.
And the other thing that it fools people into doing is to think that they can't balance training with an intense work schedule, because the mistake that you made, that I made, that most people make around cardio is more is better. And so if you go into training with the mindset that more is better, it's very easy to tell yourself, well, I don't have time to do enough. And then you excuse yourself from working out, and then you start a downward spiral in how your body is responding to your daily habits. And so once you get out of the mindset of more is better, and you start to realize, like, a really intense 25-minute workout is way better than a kind of going through the motions for an hour.
Yeah. And honestly, it's from a cognitive level, like, there's no like dread. At least, like, I feel less dread about like going to the gym, because it's not this like brutally long, intense session each time. It's more like, you know, even like your brain can somehow, it's easier for the brain to compartmentalize like 10 or 20 minutes of like really intense work than compartmentalize like an hour of just like steady state cardio. Because I don't know, like, I don't know why, but it's just, that's what I've noticed. So if I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to do 5 super fast sprints, and it'll take me 10 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on what my rest periods are. That's so much easier for me to be like, all right, I'm getting this done, rather than being like, all right, I'm going to go for a 30-minute jog. Like, that just feels worse.
And I think we were talking about this maybe off the stream, but you have the chance when you start to prioritize output intensity and you measure it, you have the chance to introduce dopamine into your workout. So basically, like, when I do my interval sprints, I haven't been running as much. And so I'm not in the shape I was in 3 months ago, and I would, close up at 12.0 at 5% incline, but say I'm closing up at 11.0 at 5% incline, 3% incline, something like that. I can measure how I did compared to my last session on the treadmill. It's very clear. I did this speed at this incline. It's very obvious if I did better than my last session.
Yeah.
When I do better than my last week or better than my last month or better than my PR, I feel happy. I'm like, yes, I'm continuing to get better. And it gives me motivation to keep trying to get better. And so I left the gym feeling like I won. Whereas when you do really, really long cardio, the way that people who do long cardio sessions judge the effectiveness of their workout is probably how terrible they feel afterwards.
How fatigued you feel.
Yeah. So it's like, let's think about that for a second. If you're judging the effectiveness of your workout by how tired you feel from it, you're creating the foundation of an unsustainable program, because you have two, contradictory elements where the better, your goal is to make yourself hate it more, which is not a sustainable goal. How can you justify that outcome? And so that's why, I think both of us have had such a good experience, shifting to either, more intense cardio or lifting. It's because you don't judge your workout by how terrible you feel after it. Frequently you judge what kind of output you did. You can feel better at the end of your workout than the beginning because of what you did during it.
Yeah. This reminds me of something that I do want to mention, which is that one of the things about making the mental shift from cardio to weight training is almost like fear or imposter syndrome or just complexity. Because you can hop on an elliptical and just move, and there's not much thinking involved. You're not actually understanding how the body works. You're not understanding body mechanics, form, posture. None of these things really matter unless you're a pretty elite level endurance athlete. I don't think most people in the gym who are just sitting on the elliptical are really thinking about that. Whereas when you get in the weight room, it actually forces you to think about your body and get into your body. Because otherwise you're kind of wasting your time. I mean, I've seen people in the gym that just kind of are doing nonsense weightlifting. But if you're actually taking some serious effort into weightlifting, you're gonna have to get into your body. And I think for me, a long time was getting over that fear or imposter syndrome of entering the weight room, because it is intimidating. A lot of the people seem like they know what they're doing because they have big muscles and they've been doing this for years or decades. And I know it's especially true for female, because, we're going to a gym here that's a super broed out gym. It's these dudes are I mean, they're probably on drugs, but they are just so big. And I'm this girl in a pink outfit trying to lift. And it is intimidating, but you gotta, the first couple days, it still is. And I think it's just my nature. I'm a little bit shyer. And so I'm still getting into it, but I think that's actually a good thing, because it forces you to kind of you're learning a lot more about your body. B, it puts you in an uncomfortable environment each time you go, because you're kind of trying to meet these higher goals and learn how to set up this equipment, or there's just so much more challenge involved versus just hopping on a machine and letting your brain go to autopilot. So I think the workout actually becomes something challenging, and that it
requires proactivity rather than reactivity, which is in all of this. I wish I had a PowerPoint slide to show everybody, but all of the cardio, calories in, calories out, all of the popular modern diet frameworks, for the most part, lead to burnout, because they take no consideration into how you feel from doing the workout. All they do is they just kind of, I assume they're just based off, some sort of institutional studies that have been done of, we've had 30 people do this, therefore it's the most effective. They're not tracking sustainability. They're not tracking whether people like it or not. And I think like you said, Preethi, about being scared of lifting, I forget this. I forget that I was too when I was a freshman in high school. And it's so funny because, when I was a freshman in high school, like other freshmen, I'm like, well, are these seniors going to like make fun of me? They're all stronger than me. Like I'm bench pressing 95 pounds. Like, well, I hope they don't make fun of me in the weight room. Hope it's closed and I don't have to go in, stuff like that. And you get over that after your first like 6 or 9 months when somebody teaches you how to do
things. And you realize like everyone's kind of learning, right? Like there's a few people in the gym who are like super pro experts, but within like a few months, like within 6 months, you start to even figure out who's kind of shit, like who doesn't actually know what they're doing. So like you're not as intimidated because you're like, oh, okay, like I'm better than that person.
Yeah.
At least. So yeah, there's that. And I think like going back to that, like, with weight training, you can be thinking about your workout, right? Like, and a big mistake that I used to make in the early days was I used to apply the principles of steady state cardio to weightlifting in the sense that I want my weightlifting workouts to be really long and really tiring, because that was the framework that I operated for cardio. And so I would do like, I don't know, like 7 to 10 exercises, like 3 to 5 range, like sets of each of them. It was just like way too long and way too much, and I was just like overexerting my muscles to the point where it was almost like unproductive. So I think a big thing if you're making that shift from cardio to weight training is like learn how to actually program your programs so that they're weightlifting programs. Like usually now my programs are like max 5 exercises, and like that's for me and for my brain, that's so much more easier to think about, right? Because it's like 5 exercises is really not that much.
Right.
It's like you can think about that in your head, and you go in the gym and you just kind of get it done.
Yeah. And I put this in the training guide that I put out earlier in the year, Sustainable Six-Pack Simple Workouts That Simply Work. And it basically is like the mental curve, the mental pain curve that you can associate with training. And that might seem foreign to some people listening. Like, what does that even mean? But when you're approaching a workout, say you're only doing 5 exercises, say you're doing 4 sets per exercise for 5 exercises. So you're doing 20 total sets, and say you're doing 6 repetitions per set. Let's just say you're doing it for all of them for simplicity's sake. So your entire workout is only going to be 120 repetitions.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier to wrap your head around, okay, if you're doing a set of 6, your first 4 are not going to be that hard. It's only your last 2 reps that actually require full focus. Like when you know what you're doing and you're coordinated and you're not likely to hurt yourself. So your first few reps in that set are easy. And so basically once you realize that it's only your last rep or 2 in each set that's challenging, then you're like, okay, well, I'm only doing that 20 times. So this entire hour-long workout, I actually only have 20 to 40 repetitions that require my focus. And then what I do, and I think what a lot of other people who are having success do, is they take long rest periods in between their sets. They're not, 30 seconds rest, 60 seconds rest. Like there's a time and place for that. But for the most part, lifting is lifting and running is, and cardio is cardio, right? So a lot of times people will try to get they just think like more conditioning is better, and you're like, well, no.
There's actually a curve. There's actually a curve where you can overtrain your muscle, and it's diminishing returns. So there's like this sweet spot of how many reps you want to do when you're weight training, and then beyond that, it's almost like it takes you way longer to recover, and there's like no point. So like I was applying this model of like cardio, more is better, more is better, more is better. So I thought like even if let's say I was training glutes, right? Like by the end of the fucking hour, like my muscle was just like so beat up, but I would still think that doing more on that for another 10 minutes was gonna benefit me somehow. And probably it didn't.
Right.
So now, like, if I get to that point, I'm just like, all right, like, why waste my effort, like, pushing this muscle when I'd rather just come back 2 days from now and just retrain the muscle because it's actually recovered.
Right.
So that's been a big thing. Yeah.
And it saves time too. And so, a lot of people who are listening, they're not professional athletes. They don't have 5 hours a day to train. That's fine. Most people don't have 5 hours a day to train. And so what that means is you just need to be selective about what exercises you pick. And that doesn't mean don't do cardio But what it might mean is say, okay, if you have 40 minutes a day to train, that's good. Like you can be in decent shape training 40 minutes a day if you train hard and apply yourself. And people who are, cardio bunnies don't often realize that, because they're like, well, 40 minutes, I'm only going to run 6 miles, and then you run 10 miles every day, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you should see some of these people, because oftentimes, your body is a reflection of your mind, and both positively and negatively. So more commonly, people will kind of make fun of overweight people and say, well, yeah, clearly they don't care about themselves, blah, blah, blah. But the flip side is true. Like, you can look at people who overtrain, and their neuroses become more and more apparent to the outside world as they get older, where the people who don't have the discipline to not run, and that sounds weird to some people, but runners need to be disciplined to not run. And
I really do that. It's like, I'm so addicted to running. So it's like, it's one of those things where, it's like, you have to like, it's an addiction that you have to like place in another way. or yeah.
I mean, and you have to realize that you're destroying your body, to quote the Tiger Woods thing a little bit, where, you'll see people in their 50s, 60s, my best friend's dad growing up now, his back is in terrible shape because he used to run like 20 miles every day on the pavement. And back then we would say like, oh, he's in like great shape. Like he's running all the time, because clearly he was addicted to running. And when you get your mind fixated on, I'm going to overcome this pain, because no pain, no gain. And I'm just going to finish this run, and it's going to be worth it when I'm done. And, if I'm a little bit sore, that's fine. You just got to push through it. And you can do that in your 20s and maybe your 30s. But then at some point, whether it's your 40s or your 50s or your 60s, your body's going to push back. And it's going to give you strong signals, arthritic signals of don't do this. And when all you've done your entire training career is overcome pain, but you haven't taken the time to be able to differentiate between a healthy pain and an unhealthy pain, then you just start driving yourself into the ground, because you can't readjust your habits. And so when you look at older runners, and their joints don't move that well, and they don't look very mobile, to me, that's a window into their soul, because it clearly tells me these people did not have the discipline to stay away from running. And most people never look at that side of it, because in the average American's very overweight. To the average American, they couldn't even fathom a situation where they train too much. Like, what, training too much? That's like having too much money. It's not possible. Well, it is possible. And then once you realize that that's possible, and if you realize that that's you, then you got to redefine what discipline is. Discipline isn't getting up at 5 o'clock to run. If you did it 5 days in a row, discipline's actually sleeping in till 7. And if you can't redefine discipline to suit your needs, your body's going to show it at some point in your life.
Yeah, exactly. It's human nature to kind of stick to something that is known and comfortable, and that is familiar. So changing a habit, especially when you're 50, is not entirely easy.
No.
So it does require a lot of like inner work to do that. But I think that's why I think if you're younger than that, especially in your 20s or 30s, this is the time to really build like the good habits, because it's a lot easier to change habits now than when you're like 50 or 60. Not to say you can't do it, but better to start early.
For sure. Should we take the SwampPatriot? Do you guys use the Apple Fitness or Peloton?
This guy said, I've never heard of anyone making fun of someone weightlifting for being weak. I actually really agree with this. So as intimidating as the bros in the gym can be in the weight room, they're actually some of the nicest people ever.
They're only mean to their friends. So
they're so nice. Like, I can't even explain. Like, there's a number of times I've done like the stupidest things with like setting up my shit, my like squat rack or deadlift or whatever. And like all the guys would just like, help me, and like no one's laughing. And even like I see how the bros interact with each other, and it's a very friendly environment. So I totally agree with this point.
Yeah, it's just a big fear. Like, I've never seen it myself.
Do you guys ever use something like Apple Fitness or Peloton app? I don't. I have this fitness tracker app. I used to, when I was a cardio bunny, I used to use it to track calories. Now I mostly just use it for just heart rate. So if I am doing cardio, I will just use it to measure my heart rate, just to see where I am at, and just like during the day too.
That surprised me that you said you're tracking calories, or you used to track calories on it.
Yeah, I used to track calories religiously with this, and like I still have calorie tracking on here, and I can see how much I've burned, but like I'm not like I don't track it. It's just like a measure to know. But yeah, and I know you mentioned this is actually not that accurate the other day.
Yeah, like I don't use those because I don't. To me, calories are not real. Like they're obviously real, but like it doesn't make sense to me. And this kind of goes into what we talked about in our last stream. Calories are kind of like quicksand, where you should be very, very careful building a program around what's essentially an assumption based on an assumption. And so just because the food label that you eat gives you a caloric number and your watch also gives you a caloric number does not mean that the two are equally accurate or cancel themselves out. And the human body doesn't work the way a car engine would.
Yeah.
So simply burning an extra 100 calories because your Apple Watch said so isn't, and if you do it for, what do trainers say? If you do it for 350 days in a row, then you have your, or if you do it for 35 days in a row, then you have your 3,500 calories, and that's a pound of fat. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, the human body doesn't work like that. So, like, to me, there's no point in tracking my calories burned in a workout. Like, I know the workouts that I do make me lean. And I know that the amount of calories that I would maybe burn according to a watch in that workout, like just because it's higher or lower, doesn't necessarily tell me that my workout's better or worse. So to me, it's just not an important measurement. Peloton app, I've never done Peloton. I do assault bikes. So I only bike when I don't have the assault bikes, because to me, I want my cardio to be the most intense thing I possibly can do for a short period of time, because that's kind of what I've found works. And so the reason I'm able to do it for 10 minutes, minute on, minute off times 5, is because I'm putting pretty strong force out for those 60 seconds that I'm doing my interval sprint. But you can't actually sprint that hard when it's bike only. So that's why I have an assault bike in my garage. Gyms I go to, I use assault bikes just because it has the handles that you move as well as your legs, so you can actually mimic the force output of running, get your heart rate, get my heart rate in the 180 range, when I'm maxing out, and really, from what I've observed, get the metabolic benefits. So like, I don't use any of those products. It's too bad, because like when I worked at Google, I worked tangentially to like their fitness team. I was just like not interested in a lot of these fitness products because mass market, and they don't actually matter in my opinion.
Yeah, I think like coming as like an engineer-minded or scientific-minded person, it's like it's one of those things. It's like the more you measure, the better. And that's not like necessarily wrong, but I think like using fitness apps as a measure of success in your fitness goals is like a false sign or false attribution, because it doesn't really allow you to get intuitive with your body and understand food and understand nutrition, understand just like how hungry are you feeling, and you'll know if you consume more calories than you should if you understand your hunger cues and understand like how did you sleep, how did you not sleep, like just getting in tune with your body versus like relying on an app to tell you that you did a good workout and that's like you're enough, if that makes sense. So I think it feels more like a crutch, and for some people, if that gets you into fitness, I think that's great, because sometimes Peloton related stuff really gets people into fitness, but eventually you want to move off of it, I would say.
Yeah. And it's almost like, if you're transitioning to somebody grading you versus you coming up with a game plan and executing on yourself, it's kind of the difference between being an employee versus starting your own company, where it is in fact easier to just do what you're told. You just show up and do what you're told. But you're limited in what you can achieve from that, because what you're doing isn't custom tailored to you. It's custom tailored to someone else's program and someone else's idea of what your output should be. And so if you really want to maximize the success that you have, you need to figure out what, you know, from a training standpoint, you need to figure out the output rest, you know, cadence or wave that your body requires. Nobody's going to be able to tell you that for you for the foreseeable future. And maybe once we get, like, you know, certain different heart rate measurements better, it's possible that you can get some technological assistance. But for the most part, like right now, there's no application that's going to be able to tell me, going to inform me about my recovery better than me just paying attention to my body.
Yeah, I totally agree. So then the next question is, I've been doing sprints since listening to your last live. Any tips on avoiding injury? That's a good one.
Warm up. Don't sprint right away.
Yeah, I would also say strength training has helped me massively avoid injury. So strengthening my glutes, strengthening my knees, strengthening my calves, strengthening my ankles. Like on your off days, I would do accessory work like that. Because the stronger my lower body, my legs got, my injuries just disappeared. Like I don't have injuries anymore from running and sprinting. So that's what helped me. And warm up if you need it. But realistically, like you shouldn't need like a 20-minute warm up just to do sprints. If that's the case, then it probably means that like you need to do a little bit more conditioning so that your body is just like a lot more flexible and agile from just doing like a minute or two of warm-ups. Yeah, so sprinting style cardio doesn't interfere with muscle growing, right?
I would say, well, it depends how technical you want to get. You can still gain a lot of muscle by sprinting, right? But if you look at like bodybuilders, you know, I don't think Ronnie Coleman was doing any sprinting. I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger was doing any sprinting. So, you know, at elite levels, it probably does interfere with muscle gain. But from a working person standpoint, like if you guys, you know, saw me and some of the physique pictures that I have plastered over my Twitter profile, like I'm probably sacrificing some degree of muscle gain to do the conditioning that I'm doing. But I'm clearly building muscle. So it's not like no, I'm not optimized to be the next Mr. Olympia, but that's okay because you don't need to be anywhere near that for people to think that you have a really good physique and look good in like work clothing. So, you know, like, yeah, probably does, but like, it's not meaningful unless you're competing for something.
Yeah. And I guess a way to think about this is like, just think about like the body adapts to what you do. Right. So I think it is a fair question to ask. Like if you're running, clearly, like what is running? If you want to run fast, like obviously the lighter you are, the more optimal that is. So your body's going to try to adapt to having a little bit less muscle and just like weight in general to be able to carry you through those sprints. But like Alex said, unless you're trying to like get like super bulky, like you'll still build muscle. It might not be as much as if you were completely not sprinting. But the huge added benefit of sprinting is that it makes you more agile. And I've noticed that if you just lift, depending on how compound your movements are, you can kind of get a little bit stiff. So I found running is a great counterbalance to my lifting, where lifting is all about being as stable as possible and like stabilizing yourself, whereas like running is about like a little bit more agility, at least for me. So I think you kind of get the best of both by doing high intensity sprinting and then weightlifting.
And that's one thing that Preethi and I agree on, which is considered a faux pas. So maybe we can get to that, where, and I guess this is probably the bro science in us, because I don't know that we've read anything about running before lifting, lifting before running, but apparently both of us condition before we lift.
Yeah.
And most trainers will tell you to do conditioning after you lift, and they'll tell you that your muscles only have a certain amount of glycogen in them, and if you do your cardio, you're going to lose the glycogen, and then you're not going to be able to lift this as well. And like that might not be false, but it also neglects the aspect of warming up, because if you think about the body in a kind of one-dimensional, like it only gets depleted framework, then there's no point in warming up. You should just start at your max capacity right away, because you're just wasting energy on warm-ups. And so once you realize that the body doesn't operate the way a car does, where you immediately when you turn it on, the fuel starts to deplete. Like there's a ramp up period, then there's a high level performance period, and then there's a ramp down period. Then you can use your cardio as also a warm up, especially if you want to be time efficient. And so that's what I do is, my conditioning is both a warm up and conditioning, and then I can go lift weights.
Yeah.
And I think that there's actually more fat loss to that, and I can't prove it, but my friend who does use these Apple Watches was telling me that when he measured his calorie burn when he did intense running versus when he didn't do intense running, the workouts where he did do 2 miles of intense running before, he burned like an extra 240 calories according to the watch. And so I do think that there's some degree of afterburn effect, and I don't know what it is. I know it works, I just don't know why.
Yeah, that's interesting. Another question was, how do you know if protein powder is giving you digestion problems? I bloat if I eat too much. This is one of those questions where it's super important to get intuitive with your body. So it's not normal to have chronic bloating, or it's not normal to be bloated after there's a little bit of bloating if you eat a big meal is okay, but like if you're chronically bloated from eating proteins, then that's your body sending you a signal that this is not something that it wants. It's not digesting well. So you want to get rid of it, because that's probably toxic for your gut. I've noticed that I stopped protein powder completely. I went cold turkey, but I've noticed that when I was consuming it, if I was eating more than a scoop a day, the bloating would last all day long. And I went like that for years, and that probably was not healthy for my gut. So if you're bloating too much, I would say cut it down. Bloating is a clear signal of just like digestion problems. What else? What does this say? Running and more sport injury. You got to get your glutes strong. It's so true. Glutes are the most powerful muscle that we have. One of. Protein powder gives me really bad acne, and you see that on a lot of guys. Whey protein. Yeah, I've heard that story too. I was reading some blog posts that protein powder could give you acne. I'm not sure why.
I bet it's the hormones. I bet it's the hormones that they feed the cows.
It's probably that. It's probably, and if you're like, I'm not sure if you're like lactose and salt intolerant, that has some effect to it too. I'm not sure. But if it's causing you acne, like definitely stop it, because that's your body telling you that it doesn't want this, and you need to get rid of it.
And you can also try different kinds. Like they're not all the same, right? So, some of the folks who follow me know that, I'm good buddies with Zach Homel. Head out to his place in Indiana to train a lot more during the summer when the weather was good. And I got both him and his wife, Ashley, eating organic food earlier this year. And so, for all of Zach's recent life, he said he couldn't eat pizza. Like, I don't eat it because I get heartburn. I got to eat these vegan pizzas, blah, blah, blah. And then when I cook for them for a few meals, I would just cook organic cheese, organic pasta, what I cook for myself. And the same food that he couldn't eat when it was just the normal stuff that you get at Kroger, all of a sudden he could digest it, and it didn't give him, like indigestion when he was just getting that typical commercial crap. And so, it might be that you get acne from the actual whey protein. It might also be that there's some contaminants that are commonly found in the protein powders that you buy. And if you start getting cleaner proteins, you might not get that acne. So it's worth exploring.
Yeah, that's a good point. How to prevent knee injury when doing squats. So it's kind of a tough question to ask unless you kind of share where you're getting injured when you're doing squats. Are you spraining your ankle, or like, are you hurting your knee, or what's going on? Because
we could start with some clear best practices for doing squats. So your knee shouldn't be coming in or out. I mean, your knees should be staying like in line with your feet.
Knee pops. Actually, that's not a bad thing. That happens too. If you've not used that joint, if that joint is not strong enough, like popping happens. I've been following this new protocol where I've been strengthening my knees pretty aggressively over the last few months because I realized that was like a weak point for me as well. And I at first when I was doing a lot of these conditioning stuff to strengthen my knees, my knee would pop a lot. And I was originally scared of it popping, but I spoke to like the trainer, and he actually said that's fine. Just kind of push through that. And then after about like a couple months of doing that, my knee doesn't really pop anymore. It'll pop here and there if I'm like not warmed up or something, but otherwise it kind of stopped popping. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but if it hurts, then stop, obviously.
And one thing that's possible is my left knee started popping a few months ago doing squats, and it never had before. And so one thing that buddy Zach told me to do is mash my IT band. And I never thought I had IT band issues, because to me, IT band issues are always from the people who ran all the time. I'd always see them rolling their legs out on these foam rollers. I'm like, haha, that sucks. Good thing I don't have to do that. And but what he said is just get a lacrosse ball. And it obviously depends if this is what you're experiencing or not. If it's not, it's probably kind of irrelevant. But if it is similar, kind of right next to the knee socket, you get the lacrosse ball, rub it on the outside of it, just kind of, I don't know what it does, but it makes it feel better. It doesn't seem like there's as much friction with my IT band, rubbing against something that it's not supposed to. And so it tends to feel fine after that. Another thing that you can also consider when you're doing squats is, and this probably would help from knee popping either way, whether it's good or bad or indifferent, is controlling the eccentric portion of the movement. So you'll see a lot of lifters, they call it use momentum. I think that's probably an incorrect terminology. I think it's more relax on the eccentric portion of the lift. And so whether that's bench press or whether that's squatting, you'll see people essentially let gravity take the weight down. So they're pushing to get it up. And then once it's up, then they let their body take a rest. And then they let their hips drop, or if it's benching, they let their hands drop faster than the weight drops. But they got that like quarter second rest, and then they get under it, and then they get that weight back up again. And that's going to put a lot of stress on your joints when you do that. And so, yeah, you can lift more weight when you do that, but it's at the expense of your joints. And so unless you're going out to a 1 rep max competition where that's allowed, it probably does make sense to control the eccentric portion of your lift. It's a little bit harder. You're not going to lift as much weight, but that's why you can't be.
Yeah, and I've actually noticed that when you control it, when you control that portion, it's intuitive, but I feel like it's better in the long run because you're kind of building the ancillary joint strength as well.
Yeah.
And you're kind of getting the whole range. And it's just like, honestly, it also feels better because you're using more muscles, more of your joints. And so it feels, I've noticed it.
I feel like,
any insight on the best time of the day to weight train? Does it depend on the circadian rhythm? My only answer to this is whenever you have the most motivation. There's really no best time of the day. Obviously, you want to be able to get enough sleep, but like other than that, I don't really think there's a best time of the day. It really just depends on when you have the highest energy and motivation and time.
I liked, I haven't done morning lifting for since work from home started with lockdowns. I used to only lift in the morning. I really prefer to lift in the morning. I just like getting my day started lifting in the morning. I like conditioning on an empty stomach. That's one thing that a lot of people, there's back and forth. Does fasted cardio make a difference? Well, I don't know if fasted cardio makes a difference, but I know that I can do cardio faster when I don't have solid food in me. And I know doing cardio faster helps me burn fat better. And so if I'm trying to put myself in a position where I'm trying to maximize my output of my intervals, it's going to have to be early in the morning, because the other alternative is I'm doing it with food in me, and I just don't do them as well when I have food in me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But weight training, that's A lot of it's schedule, whatever you have energy. I also like to have a ton of coffee in me when I train, and I'm not trying to load myself up with like 200 milligrams of caffeine at 5 p.m.
Yeah. I prefer morning too, just because, like you said, it helps me get my day going. But I've seen some people just love training at night because they can just like get a really good session in and then go right to sleep after that.
Which is insane to me because, like, don't you guys get hungry after you lift?
No, I think they'll probably eat like have a protein shake or something, and then go to bed. So again, it just depends on your schedule, what you like, what you prefer. And what you can stick to. That's probably the most important thing. The thing about mornings is like you have a lot less just distractions or excuses that you can make because it's in the morning, it's the first thing. Whereas like if it's later in the day, there's a lot of room for variability and things to go out of your control. Yeah, I would. So I'm going to share this. So there's this guy called Ben Patrick that I've been following on Twitter. His thing is knees over toes guy. If you have if you want to strengthen your knee, I highly recommend following him and checking out his programs. They've been a game changer for me in terms of strengthening my own knees and ankles. And he's kind of taken a very, very scientific approach. So highly recommend that. Any other questions, or we're almost at the hour.
We're ready now. It's cool. We'll do this again.
Yeah. You look tired, Alex. What's up?
I just, got a lot to do earlier in the year because I am balancing both a full-time job and training, and making sure everybody's aware of all of my fitness offerings on Twitter as well as other channels. We're starting a group fitness class or challenge on this coming Monday, so getting all the materials ready for that. Really, really excited about the feedback for the first one. Basically, average results are people are losing like 8 to 12 pounds in 8 weeks and eating more, which is something that I know that doesn't surprise you, but it probably does surprise a lot of the people on the stream where, a lot of times it's like all the calories in, calories out. People are like mind blown when it's like, yeah, you can eat more food and lose weight at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's what we're showing people in the challenge. Everybody's eating delicious food. They're liking their eating more and they're getting fit. And so this is my goal, is to teach the world that these things are possible. So
there's one more question. Best rep range. Do you want to take it or should I take it?
Well, it depends, right? So for me, the best rep range, if I'm trying to be aesthetic, is about 4 to 6 reps. If I'm trying to be strong, it's going to be less than that for my main movements, but probably more for my accessory movements. And then I remember the first time I met Preethi and Preethi's boyfriend, Alexander. I was talking to Alexander in Napa, and he was talking about connective tissue. And I remember him grabbing Preethi's arm and saying that people with Preethi's connective tissue probably shouldn't be doing lifting in the 3 to 5 rep range. And so it depends on your specific body, right? My preference would be to go as heavy as your body can handle. I think that that tends to produce results, at least on a short-term basis, that are good. But then, the heavier you go, there's injury risk in going heavy.
And he says, but wow, that's a big contrast from Ajax. He says 8 to 10. It's one of those things. It's like, again, like N equals 1. And that's that's very true with fitness. It's try what works best for you. I think you can listen to other people's advice, but until you really experiment with your own body and see what feels good and what works for you, you won't really know. For me, it took me probably 2 years to figure out what is the right rep range for me. It really depends on the exercise too. Like if it's deadlift, I'm not powerlifting. So I'm actually in the 4 to 6 range for like back squats and deadlift. Oh, okay. But then like if it's like, I'll have a lot of days where I'm doing very high rep. If it's like, for example, it's conditioning my knees or conditioning my glutes. So there'll be some days where I'll do like really high rep glute stuff where I'll do just like hyper extensions for 200 reps or something. So I change it up just depending on the day and what I'm feeling. But my main like compound movements, like deadlifts and back squats, like 4 to 6.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else?
I think that's
Wow,
good.
Alex, didn't know you had a full-time job. Impressive output. Yeah, Alex has definitely an impressive output.
You got to figure, what people don't get necessarily, especially in January when fitness is top of mind for people, is they see other people who are good looking and they're like, oh, that guy gets everything and whatever. It's like it's unfair. He can do this and that and the other thing. And it's like, well, do you want your life to be fair or unfair? And you have a choice. And what you might find is that the more effort you efficiently apply to being in shape, the easier it is to get clients to say yes, to get the people you work with to say yes. So you can actually figure out, you can save yourself time by showing up to the gym and getting an efficient 30 to 60 minute training session in. So yeah, I'm busy, but I'm also able to manage my time slightly more efficiently than the next guy because of all of those things that I mentioned. And so, hopefully you guys can see these synergies as well.
Yeah. All right. That's a good topic to end on. So thanks for joining, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.
Catch you guys next time.